Aloha, shalom, Shabbat shalom, everybody. I'm so excited to finally go live for the Torah portion because it's been a few weeks since I've done that. I've just been sharing my older videos that I made a couple years back, but I don't yet have a video on Parshat Terumah. I don't think I do anyway, so I thought now's a good opportunity to go live. So tonight's Torah story is called Terumah. I have my notes here, and I just want to share with you guys that I love when you share your insights with us in our private group Shabbat Crew on Facebook. I love when you share what you find to be interesting about the stories, what you find to be meaningful in your life at this time. So please, if there's something that you learned about this Parsha or something that really touches your heart about this story, share it with us in the comments, share it on the wall in our group, and that way we can all learn together. So the title of the Torah story always tells us a little bit about what the story is going to be about. You can consider the title almost like a summary of the story. There's a lot to say about that too. Basically, it's a code. Okay, so the code or the numbers, the frequency, or the essence of the title represents the entirety of the story. So the title again is called Terumah, and you often hear the translation to be an offering or a donation, but it's so much deeper than that. And Hebrew is always like that. It's a multi-dimensional language. It always goes deeper. So it actually translates technically as to separate or elevate. And when you think of those things together, an offering or donation, and then this separation or elevation, you can see it like a sacrifice. In fact, a terumah in the Torah is a sacrifice. So it starts to paint this bigger picture when you hear all of those different definitions. It's saying that when we give something, we're elevated. When we make a sacrifice, especially in the name of the Holy One, we're elevated. And all of life is elevated through that sacrifice. And this story, Terumah, is all about the building of the tabernacle. It's the instructions to build the tabernacle, the first temple, as the Israelites or the children of Israel wandered the desert after leaving Egypt. So this was going to be their first temple. They were instructed to build a dwelling place below for the one who is the Most High, for God to come into this world and dwell. So the tabernacle was this moving temple. It was called the Mishkan. And this story is the one where we receive the exact instructions, which materials to use to build it, how to build it, the lengths, the measurements of everything. And at the very beginning, it talks about giving an offering, or making a sacrifice, right, terumah, of gold, silver, or copper. And it says it in that order, gold, silver, copper, because what it's really saying on a deeper level is no matter how much or how little you have, gold, silver, copper, whatever level of life you're at, whatever level of abundance you're at, there's always something to give. So everybody can and must give something in order to connect with the essence of the divine, in order to they themselves, you yourself, me, myself, become a vessel for the Holy One to fill it. We have to give to receive is what it's saying. And the point in asking for gold, silver, or copper is really stressing the fact that it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, how much or how little you have. The law is always the same for everyone. You've got to give to get. So I really love that part. And it further explains the title of the story, Terumah, by saying that we have to sacrifice in order to be closer to God. There are things we need to sacrifice. We need to empty ourselves. We need to become clear so that we can come closer to God. And also, the children of Israel gave their only material possessions. Think about it. What do you think they had on them after leaving Egypt? Very little. And what they had was precious to them. It was all they had. And they gave everything they had in order to be able to build this humble Mishkan, this humble temple, mobile temple. And so when they gave those material possessions, those materials became elevated because they were given a holy purpose. They were given with humble and obedient intentions out of the love and fear or I like the translation awe of God. So those items went from, material value to sacred value. And so that really paints a better picture of why this whole story is called Terumah, sacrifice, offering, a gift, but also to separate, to elevate. So I took some notes about my favorite insights from the different rabbis and speakers that I tuned into this week. And one thing that I loved the most, and I put it at the top of the list, was there were 2 poles on the Ark of the Covenant. Okay, so when the Mishkan was built, first the Ark of the Covenant was built. The Ark for the Covenant. And you can see the Ark of the Covenant as the heart of the temple, just like your heart is the heart of your temple, your body. So the very first thing that was built was the Ark of the Covenant, and it had these poles on it, one on each side, and that's how they carried the Ark. However, it was said in the Torah that the Ark wasn't carried, but that it actually carried those who appeared to be carrying it. That it didn't even need to be carried, that it was weightless by some mysterious law, because the laws of God are outside of time and space. So it was said that the Ark didn't need to be carried, that it actually carried those who went to lift it. It lifted those who lifted it. I really love that. Another thing I loved about learning about those poles, there's a lot to learn about those poles, because every part of the Ark and every part of the tabernacle is representing a deep and sacred concept. So I went deeper into the study of the poles this year, and my second favorite thing I learned about it was when Joshua was leading the children of Israel across the river Jordan to the Holy Land, he gathered the whole nation in between those 2 poles. How is that possible? How is that physically possible? It's not. That's the thing. It wouldn't appear to be. It's not logical. But it's symbolic. He gathered all the children of Israel between those poles, and he said, here in this space, we are infinite. We connect to the Creator. In this space, we are protected by the Creator. We're one with the Creator. And in that way, you can see how those 2 poles are like the 2 polarities of the father and the mother, the masculine and the feminine, the 2 parts of the one. And at the center of the mother-father, at the center of those polarities, is the heart. The infinite space, or the infinite heart space, where the child, you, or the whole nation of the children of Israel, rests, because everything rests in that space. Oh, I was listening to Rabbi Chaim Richman. He's probably one of my favorite rabbis to listen to. And I love how he put it. He said, between those 2 poles, he said, the vortex of the dimension of holiness is between the poles of the Ark. The vortex of the dimension of holiness is between the poles of the Ark. And it's true, because think about it. What is the Ark of the Covenant? It's the heart of the temple. It's the infinite space of the heart. It's the infinite void or vortex. And so those poles then must be representing the mother and the father. And so it appears like we're carrying them, but isn't it they who always carry us? Them who always carries us? So that was really a beautiful thing to meditate on and picture in my own mind's eye, of just seeing the people that are carrying it as the children of Israel, but really that what we're carrying is the mother and the father and everything in between, which is all of creation. And creation is carrying us. I also like how when Rabbi Chaim Richman asks, how did the whole nation fit? It's because it was beyond the borders of reality that this took place. All things are possible with the mother and father. All things are possible. And it didn't take anything that they didn't already have with them wandering in the desert to build the tabernacle. They didn't need to go anywhere. They didn't need to order something online. They didn't need to order materials. They had all the materials right there with them. this simple group of people, oppressed people who just went through all these hardships in Egypt, the little they brought with them was all they needed to make the tabernacle, which was everything, which was the only thing that they really needed in order to not only survive and thrive in the desert, but to ensure the survival and survival of their descendants, us, all future generations, because that tabernacle then became the holy temple, which then became manifest in our hearts. So that was the beginning of something so powerful. Simple people. They just happened to have everything they needed on them. Wandering the desert. They had everything on them, all the materials necessary to build this humble temple, which would be the seed of something so profound that we're still thriving from today. We're thriving because of this blessing of the building of the Mishkan all these years ago. And this is something that I was journaling about. After doing my studies, I came to this conclusion that it's okay. So you hear about how Moses questions, why would we need to build a temple? And I've heard this question asked by many people over the years. Why would we need a temple for God? Nature is my temple. Nature is my church. Why do we need a space for God if the whole world is God's dwelling space? And to one degree, that is true. Of course, everything is God. God is omnipresent. However, when we as creators in the image of God and God's creative abilities, when we create something with our conscious intention, it does something special. It sanctifies our actions. That intention sanctifies our actions. And so the actual geometry and the dimensions of the Mishkan, which is why the instructions are so specific in this parsha. The geometry of this structure is so sacred. It's a pattern. It's a crystallized or manifested code, that allows God's light to come in and fill it and be condensed in such a unique way. Of course, God is everywhere, but it's like creating a world within a world. You know what I'm saying? And it gives a space for God's light to be condensed for a purpose, so that people like you and I could go and meet God in that condensed space, in that powerful space. And what does it show when we give everything to Terumah, when we offer everything we have? We sacrifice everything we have to make this special space. That's not just any space, but it's built upon sacred geometry, divine code. The combination of that sacrifice and that intention and that creation of such a structure brings such a unique opportunity for people, not only of that time, but all future generations, to be able to connect with God in a profound way, in a powerful way, in a way that is elevated, separated from the ways in which we meet God in every other moment. It creates a new opportunity. And if you study Kabbalah, then you might recognize the term tzimtzum. And if you don't recognize this, you might want to write it down. T-Z-I-M. T-Z-U-M. Tzimtzum. And it's about contraction. And how when God was infinite in the beginning of the beginning, God contracted into God's self and created a finite world within the infinite world. Created something out of nothing. And that's what the building of the tabernacle represents. So the story of Terumah really is reminding us of the beginning of creation, and it's connecting us to the knowing that we are creators. We are created in the image of God. We're not God, but together we all make up that one. And so we have this creative ability, and the building of the tabernacle basically is giving us the instructions of how to build the Holy of Holies, how to build the most holy thing, how to use our creative ability in the highest way possible. Therefore, the construction of the tabernacle is symbolizing the most sacred of our creations, the first most sacred creation. It is our offering in proportion to God's original offering of the creation of the world. That's how powerful this is. So this story is not just about tapping into our creative abilities, although that it is on a microcosmic level. That is something that goes along with it. But it's not just about tapping into our creative abilities. It's not just about connecting with God. It's about understanding who we are in God's image, understanding really what our creative powers are, and learning how to use them in the highest way per God's directive, by God's instruction, so that all of our creations reflect those divine dimensions, just like the tabernacle, just like the Mishkan. And so every year when we come to this story, we can use it as a reminder to refine our creative abilities, to return to our innocence, our purity, to be holy in all of our creative expressions, so that everything we think, everything we say, and everything we do carries a profound potential, like the Mishkan did and still does today. Also, think about tzimtzum and contraction, right? It's like a mother when she births a child. Oof, my hair is getting stuck to this chair, you guys. Ooh. Okay. Think about a mother birthing a child, right? Ultimate creator. She has contractions. It's like the child is birthing itself, because the child's coming out with each wave, with each contraction. So it's something to think about too when we think about Tzimtzum and when we are reminded of our own creative abilities. So that's the thing. We ask this question, why do we need to build a temple for God when God's everywhere? Come on, don't you think there's obviously got to be a reason for that? Just like in the Torah, when there's a mistake, when you look more closely, there's actually no mistake. It's for a reason. What do you think God would say if you were to ask God, God, why do we need to build a temple for you? You're everywhere. He would say, yeah, duh. Of course. But there's a reason I'm giving you these codes, these instructions, these very precise instructions to create this structure for me to dwell in. It's almost like a spaceship for God. You know, it's a structure built out of very particular dimensions that reflect the original blueprint of creation. And what it's doing is blessing us by giving us an opportunity to build with our sacrifices and with our own hands and with our hearts. To build this sacred thing, to feel to feel what God felt when God made this world, at least as close as possible to that feeling. What a blessing that God gives us these dimensions, these blueprints, so that we can create this thing and at least get a glimpse, a small taste of what it felt like for the Creator to make this world. And also what comes through that experience is humility. Because we get to experience the blood, sweat, and tears that go into the process of making such a creation. Again, Terumah, we had to sacrifice what little we had. Everything we had. And God sacrificed everything to make this world. God contracted into God's self. So we get to experience all of those sensations through this process. And we're reminded that this is the creative process behind all of our creations. How sacred is the purpose of each thought we form and create in our minds? How sacred is the purpose of each word we form upon our lips? How sacred is each and every one of our actions in this world? And does it match up to the blueprint of the Mishkan? So there's a geometry to everything. Everything is geometry. Everything is vibration. So how are we maintaining that awareness in everything we think, say, and do? What is the geometry of your thoughts? What is the geometry of your words? And what is the geometry of your actions? Some really cool tarot cards that represent this, and the way that I teach tarot, for those of you who are going, oh no, she's a witch or she's a gypsy or whatever. I'm none of those things. I am that I am. But I teach tarot in the perspective that it's a mini Torah. Tarot, Torah, tarot, Torah. Tarot is a condensed Torah in pictorial form. So a couple of cards that jump out at me right now are 3 and 4. And they're all connected, but I'm going to share with you a little bit about 3 and 4. 3 is the Empress and 4 is the Emperor. And the Empress is the one who's pregnant or filled with the conception, the thought, the vision. And she has to hold a frequency of beauty and truth and light and love in order to imprint that vision while it's still within. Just like when a baby's in the womb, it's affected, okay? So she becomes the vessel that imprints that thing within, and then she births it, and it comes out into the world, into the form or for the emperor, known in ancient Egypt as the sovereign. So she gives birth to that thing, and then the emperor is the one who provides the life outside of that womb, or the life around the manifested creation, so that that manifestation can continue to survive and thrive. It's the pattern or code that protects and sustains the creation. The pattern, paternal, father, protector, law, structure. And I could keep going through the whole deck just to answer this one question and provide further insight. But this week, some excellent cards to have on your altar or study or dive into are the Empress and the Emperor. Because the Mishkan is all about structure, form, law, instructions, the geometry that's going to create a most sacred space for God to enter. So that's it for my notes. I'm really digging this story, and I'm looking forward to this Shabbat tonight. I wish you all such a meaningful Shabbat. If you don't tune into my weekly activations, you should. They're awesome. And I go live on the Royal Path Tarot page and share it to a bunch of groups. And we've been doing it every week for years. And you know when it's going to happen because it's always at the 4 quarters of the moon cycle. And we just did the new moon one, and I wanted to share with you because I have it out in front of me right here. And I wanted to share with you guys who have been following both just an idea of how much they're connected, the Torah and the Tarot. So this week's challenge is the 3 of Cups. And with Terumah, you can see that it's about building together. 3 is about action together. The Cups is the suit of the heart, emotions, feelings. How are we putting our heart, our blood, sweat, and tears into this tabernacle together? This is something surely to cheers over. This is something to lift our cup to. The most sacred creation. We're getting the opportunity to receive these divine blueprints to be able to create the most holiest thing we'll ever create. So that's a challenge and gift this week. Okay, and the Page of Wands came up as well. We need to feel that inspiration, that passion. The Page of Wands is about a refreshed perspective on the spiritual path, feeling connected, tapped in, and alive, ready for this journey. And so if you haven't been feeling that, now's an opportunity to feel that through the building of this tabernacle, whatever that is in your life. What are you putting your heart into? Because remember, cups, heart, right? The tabernacle, the first thing that was built was the Ark of the Covenant, being the heart of the temple. So whatever you're building right now, does it match up to the standards of the Mishkan? Is it such a holy thing that you're working on? How is it going to help you, help us, help the world? Is it really worthy of your attention, of your blood, sweat, and tears, of your heart? Is your heart in the creation? Because you're not going to go anywhere until your heart's in it. You can't truly build anything sustainable without creating the heart first, putting the heart in first. And that's why in this story, Terumah, this Shabbat, we learned that the first instruction was to build the ark. So right there, is your heart in your creation or not? Because you already lose right there if your heart's not in it. You won't feel that passion and inspiration in the highest way. Therefore, you're already off on a negative start, or at least not your most powerful start, and that creation is not ultimately going to be sustainable. You want your heart to be in it so that your spirit can be lit up, so that your creation, the very fabric of that creation, is made with that love and that light. And the only way to create something that's made of such divine materials, of your love and light, or divine love and light, is when it has purpose. That's why the Mishkan, having, the ultimate intention and purpose, created such a holy structure. May all of our thoughts, words, and actions bring creations of that caliber. of that frequency. Otherwise, why are we here? And then the ally of the week was the Kaf, which is the crown, or it's the card strength in the tarot. And it's all about being like the creator, recognizing that our strength is in the creator. That we could think we're so great, but until we're tapped into God, we are not opening up to the highest power. And in order to tap into that highest power, we need to be humble, open, receptive, relaxed, purified, cleansed, so that we can be a mirror of that Most High. And like we said a moment ago, getting the opportunity to sacrifice everything we are and everything we have to build this most sacred structure is giving us a taste of what God went through to bring us this world. And that's humbling. And in that humility, we find our true strength. So this is just, I wanted to connect the activation to the Torah story so that you guys could see just how connected they are. The whole Torah can be summarized by the very first letter. The first letter represents the first story, which represents the whole story. You understand? It's an Enneagram. It's a code. It's a spiral. For real. You've heard of the Da Vinci Code. You've heard of the Bible Code, the Torah Code. This is a real thing. It's all geometry. And so it is with the tarot as well. Each one is contained within each one. All are contained within each one. Same thing for the chakras. Same thing for the Sephirot. So tarot and Torah are one. If you switch around the letters of tarot, T-A-R-O, O-R-A-T, R-O-T-A, you make the 4 different configurations of the 4 letters, you get Rota, Orat, Tarot, and you also get Ator. So I'll go through them, okay? Torah is law. Tarot is magic. Orat is to tell. Rota is to rotate. Ator was the Egyptian goddess of love, the heart. So all these different configurations tell you we're turning the wheel. It's a rotating, rota, rotating, never-ending circle, cycle, story that we're telling, Orat, of magic, tarot, and law, Torah. It's a never-ending story that we are both telling and living. We're the living word of magic and law and love, Ator. So they're absolutely connected. So when someone tells you, you're unholy for using the tarot, understand just how many layers there are to that. Yeah, you're playing with magic. It is intense, and it can be dark, and there are many different ways that we can use tarot to manipulate either negatively or positively, just like we do with all of our thoughts, manipulate ourselves even, and manipulate others. We manipulate with our thoughts. We manipulate with our words and our actions. We manipulate ourselves and each other, because it's all oneself. Everything is energy. We're all just manipulating energy for better or for worse. So yes, these cards are, they represent the essence of the fabrics of reality. So yeah, you're playing with some powerful energy here. So it makes the consequences powerful. But it's not something to fear. It's something to understand. And anything, when used for the sake of the Creator, is a blessing. So if you can see the tarot as archetypes and you can use them from an archetypal awareness, from that space, that timeless, immortal space, then you can use them in a holy way. I'm wishing you guys a meaningful Shabbos. Please do your own studies of Terumah. There's so much out there, so many resources. Go on YouTube, type in the story, type in Parshat Terumah, and you'll see so many beautiful different depictions of the story, and it goes deeper every year. My grandfather's in his 90s, and he's still learning something new every year with each story. It's always different. It's never the same. And we all share our perspectives and learn together. So please, if you enjoyed this video, let me know your favorite part about it. Let me know what insight you gained from it. Let us know what you learn outside of this video. Share with us your resources. I encourage you also to learn the Shabbat candle lighting blessing and sing it, light your candles, or do whatever rituals feel right to you. And then share with us, make a video or record, or just give us a little write to us about how your Shabbat experience has been. That's why we're here. All right, everybody. Much love. Enjoy your Shabbos with your family and friends. Disconnect, unplug for a little bit. Make it a special day. Do whatever you can, whatever feels right to sanctify this day, this next 24 hours, and make it special from the rest of the week. It's the day of rest. We'll go back into the world and do our usual things soon, but how can you separate this day from the rest? Make it holy.